Welcome back to ThinkPiece. Today we are straying off of our normal heady conversation of deep and mind-numbing solutions to problems that are probably never going to be solved in our lifetime. So instead of thinking about that depressing shit, we decided to go a little bit to a warm and fuzzy place that we call memory lane. Gentlemen, we're talking
1996.
Yes, sir.
Oh yeah.
I liked your 1920s radio voice there, Brennan. Or was that what you were going for? The year was 1996.
1886.
It was.
Got it wrong by a century.
It was a whole nother century ago, though. We are talking about here, gentlemen. That would be the 20th century.
Oh, things were different back then.
Indeed, they were. Indeed, they were. So what we decided to do this time around is talk about our favorite music from the year 1996. We each chose an album, which we'll reveal throughout the podcast. And we're just going to talk about like music from that time period, probably to give a little bit of context. What else was popular and going on besides the three that we chose, and also perhaps give you some nuggets of amazing stories from our high school experience. Yes, exactly. I can't imagine that that's not going to be engaging storytelling for
that'll
all
be
involved.
Scintillating talk.
That's right. So, so without any further ado, let's kick off this 1996 edition of ThinkPiece Music Edition by Dave telling us about where he was musically in 1996.
Oh, so it's funny. It's not funny, but I'm kind of weird about like years and dates. So a number of years ago. Yeah, I know. Surprise.
Oh, dude, I'm glad you're coming. I'm glad you're coming right out with a timepiece.
Yeah, no, I want to put this in.
Go on.
Yeah, I want to put this in context. So a number of years ago, I created a playlist for each year, like music year of my life, starting in like the early 90s. So on my phone, I have a playlist for each year, and then like all the songs that were important to me or that came out that year that I was listening to, or songs that remind me of that year or whatever. So I think I had the first ones in 1993, and then I have it through last year. So it's funny, the
93, you were 12 years old doing this?
No. I did it for the first. So I did it for the first time like 6 or 7 years ago. So I had to like remember what I was doing then. So a lot of it was just memory of that time. So I had to. I mean, I'm sure I missed some things, but I've kept it current like the last few years. But so I've done every year in between, and oddly enough, the year with the fewest number of songs is 1996, which is very strange. Like 95 was a decent one, 97, 98, 99 were huge. But for whatever reason, 96 only had 4 songs on it, and 2 of them. And so I did this, I don't know, 6 or 7 years ago, and 2 of those 4 songs were REM songs from New Adventures in Hi-Fi. So, yeah, which is strange. So
hold on. Can I guess what songs they were?
Yeah, please do.
Ebo the Letter.
Yep.
And Electrolyte.
Ooh, in hindsight, well, not in hindsight, that's my probably favorite song now, but that year I was obsessed with the opener, How the West Was Won and Where It Got Us.
It's fucking a great song, man.
Yeah,
it's a great song.
It is.
And
Ebo
pretty
the Letter.
close with my guesses, right?
Yeah, very good. Ebo the Letter for sure. So it was a weird year for me. I became obsessed with U2 like the 2 or 3 years before that.
Yeah.
They hadn't put out any new music by that time. I never, and you guys will talk, I'm sure, about some of your experiences with like punk and even hip hop to some extent. I never really got into that as much. So I was sort of stuck in this weird, like almost pre-Britpop when I became obsessed with that. So I was still like in the U2, REM, Pearl Jam, not really feeling all that current. in that area. So to me,
There
like
wasn't
the
a
REO,
whole lot of Britpop on this.
no,
We,
there wasn't.
all three of us looked at the same list
It was
of several hundred of the top albums released this year, and there wasn't as much Britpop as I thought there would be. You guys agree?
it was
totally.
it was sort of a lull time.
It was a weird
two
year.
2 years before, Manchester was enormous. Like Blur was dropping, and Oasis, like, wasn't that around that time, Dave? 93, 94?
Yeah, well, and even in '97, Blur, Oasis, Radiohead, The Verve, they all had awesome albums the year after. But for whatever reason, like none of the bands that I dug came out with anything in '96, which was really strange.
So let me step in here and tell you how I chose 96. It wasn't for any I loved this year in music.
Oh yeah, I was wondering.
So I was like, when is sort of the seminal time of when you start to understand and really get into music? And I think all of us, like Dave, I was with Dave in that middle school phase where we obsessed over U2 and, a couple other Agnes
the
guys.
Cranberries,
Yeah.
Kravitz, and,
We all liked music.
No. But I think that getting your license, being in a car, and having complete control over that. Like, you could sit in your house and listen to a CD player, but there's something about the freedom of having a car for the first time, and that, along with music, that sort of, I don't know, fills in all of the other rough space around it. So it's just you and the car and the music, and sometimes your friends in the car too, but sometimes it's just those three things, and it's a very intimate setting in which you might listen to the same CD 300 times before you take it out of your CD player. And it's just, I don't know. So I was like, well, when were we starting to get our licenses? And sophomore year, that first semester, so the second half of freshman year and sophomore year. So it's an awkward part of every teenager's life in general, like a transition period. You're no longer a freshman. People are starting to get their licenses, so you have a little bit more freedom in that respect. But I also think that musically, we're all starting to discover new things or discover our tastes, and which is also cool. I think the fact that we chose 3 totally different albums, even though I could have easily. I told Brennan, I said, if you wouldn't have chosen Pinkerton, I would have done Pinkerton.
Yeah, I knew one of you was going to.
but I clearly, looking through the list, I was really conflicted. So there wasn't a clear cut for me when I threw it out there, which is why I was like, you guys choose what you want, and then we'll see which way this goes. But for me, again, I think it's cool to look at a time period when, like, you're really unsure of yourself, but you're getting a new sense of freedom and responsibility, not just in the music that you choose, but like with that responsibility of driving a car. And I feel like those two things combined, sort of like you can start to take ownership of your likes and dislikes, just like you're taking ownership of other things in your life. And it's not just you're listening to top 40, you're not just listening to what your friends listen to. So I feel like that's a kind of a pivotal time. And it happens for everybody at a different age, but I feel like that was right around the time that, for me personally, I started to understand why I liked what I liked.
Yeah.
So that's why we chose 1996, or I chose 1996 rather.
No, it was an interesting time. So before you guys, we can do this whenever, but I wrote some down from that list that weren't my favorite albums, but just trying to think of the bands that just remind me of that time. So here's what I came up with, and you guys, I don't know, agree or disagree or add. So No Effects, Stone Temple Pilots, Pearl Jam, Rage, Dave Matthews, Soundgarden, Beck, Fiona Apple, Sublime, and the Smashing Pumpkins. That reeks of '96. Like that list of.
Oh yeah, I've got
those were my fucking favorites.
Back
then, and honestly, that list still kind of holds up.
Most of those stand the test of time.
So
right, they think like 1996, but they're absolutely very good. And I think that many other years would struggle to have a list as strong as that.
Dave,
I don't know if you
go ahead. No, I think that's a great list. Mine, I had All Eyes on Me, Tupac, the Score, Fugees. Then I had Sublime. I had Beck. I had Outkast, AT I had Weezer.
Oh yeah, I missed that one. Yeah.
Face to Face, Goldfinger, Jamiroquai, Traveling Without Moving.
Oh yeah.
Less Than Jake.
Reminds me of Schwab.
Yeah. Dave Matthews was on mine. Rage Against the Machine was on mine. Nerf Herder. That one, because we
I had a Nerf Herder sticker on my car. It's the only big sticker I've ever had on any car ever, and it was a Nerf Herder.
With the one with the Star Wars font, Brennan.
Yeah, for sure. It was small.
But you know, the other thing that I looked at on this is there was a lot of stuff that I got into even after 96, 97, 98.
Yeah.
So like Wilco being there. There's two amazing
right.
Bell and Sebastian albums that came out during that year. So On Avery Island by Neutral Milk Hotel. So like there was a shitload of good music in here. And I like both of you, I was texting Brennan about this yesterday, and I was like, I think it's kind of disingenuous for me to say Wilco being there because I didn't even start listening to them until like 99, 2000. So
I had the same thought you did. As I wanted to pick one that I actually liked and listened to in that year, because those Bell and Sebastian albums I wore out like in college.
Oh yeah,
Modest Mouse released a really good one that year, but I didn't listen to that stuff in '96.
So as cool as we want to sound, we were not cool. We were just listening to.
I was listening to late period REM, okay, or mid to late period, whatever it was.
Yeah, it was 22 years ago. Whatever period it was. It felt back then. It felt like the end of REM's career, didn't it?
Well, it was the last album with Bill Berry.
Yeah, with their drummer.
Right. And he had medical problems, and it felt to me when I bought that album, it was like these are a bunch of old men. Like this is kind of like their last. One of the guys was collapsing on stage. This was obviously their last album, and it turns out they'd only been around for like 12 years.
I know. Their debut came out in '83, I think. Burmer. Yeah. So it had been 13 years, which is not that long.
It's not that long enough, but they seem super duper old to me at that point.
Totally. Yeah, I agree.
But I don't know, just funny how that I don't know, the age changes like that.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Well, the other thing that I that as I was reading through this list is that I just thought about how much different it was to consume music back then, and I wanted to make sure that we hit on this. Like, all of us probably bought CDs, probably tapes to start out with. I had definitely had a cassette collection before I had a CD collection. None that I was like super proud of, like, oh, I had that on cassette. That was like, but there was some Paula Abdul, perhaps.
I was going to say, you're not proud of Janet Jackson or Paula Abdul, because I am.
But I had both of those, but
Boys to Men.
I did have a Boys to Men tape.
Me too. Oh yeah.
I had some Michael Jackson for sure.
Yeah.
But
I had Michael Jackson on vinyl.
So do we.
That's cool.
So do we, and our dog.
Very cool.
Our dog put his teeth through a Thriller. I thought Sarah was going to cry.
Oh, that's kind of rock and roll, man.
He's thinking of that Thriller in Manila. Yeah, it's very rock and roll.
So, but yeah, the consumption of music has completely changed over the last 22 years. So, I feel sad for some that they will never get the intimate relationship that we had with a place like maybe Phil's Records, or some of us went up to in like later high school Shake It, or places like that, or Dave when we were in college CD Central.
Oh yeah.
But I bought a lot of CDs at Best Buy, but I also probably close to, I would say, a sixth of my collection came from Columbia House and BMG. I scammed those. Well, not scammed. I would do one, and then I would do the other, and then I would do the other, and then I would just keep going back and forth and getting my 12 free CDs and buying the one or whatever it was. But I definitely stocked the majority of my collection when I was in high school. Through that, man, I got so many CDs through that stuff. So, but yeah, kids just don't consume music like that anymore. It's, I don't know. I'm not going to get all sappy and say that it's sad, but I feel like
it's sad they don't scam BMG anymore. Man.
Well, come on,
man. Those are the days we used to scam the fuck out of BMG. What? So that's not the way to consume music.
We were not
Yeah,
scamming anybody. They were getting the better of us.
They knew the deal. But you raised a good question, though. I think it would be interesting to hear your guys, like when you thought about these albums in particular that you picked, but also just that time period. Like, how do you remember how you were listening to music? I mean, you mentioned obviously in the car.
Yeah.
But for me, like this album, I specifically remember my Discman. And even like when I was driving around with my parents, like I remember coming back from a long cross country meet, listening like to my Discman in the back seat. Also had like a shitty, little boom box like I would play in my room. So like just the one CD boom box, which was terrible. Yeah. My parents had like one of those ancient like 5-disc changers, which like was the loudest thing you've ever heard, like when it moved around. I play it like a little den. Yeah, exactly. But it's so funny, like that. But those were in specific places other than the Discman. Like you were either in your car or your parents' like living room or den or like your bedroom. You know, it wasn't walking around on the street or like we do.
Yeah,
now
so
anyway.
It's kind of like way more awesome now that everybody can just plug music into their ears from their phone because everybody has one of those all the time, right? And I don't know. There's detractors to that too, but you don't have to be in a certain spot. And like if you keep rewinding the tape, before 1985 or whatever we're talking about here, or 96, music had to be in other very certain spots,
Sure.
You get a phonograph or a quartet or, like it wasn't too long ago where it had to be like just played by the people playing their instruments and shit.
We went to the symphony last night and it was amazing, but yeah, you used to have to be there to hear it. Yeah. It was great. Yeah.
How many like people were in the symphony? The whole 100
probably the whole like 100. Yeah. Yep. It was amazing.
Fucking hey, man, that's awesome, huh?
Yeah. It's really kind of moving. Yeah. It is moving.
I haven't done that in a long time. Should do that.
Anyway.
Yeah. I did go to Raritan's practice earlier. That was a moving experience.
Nice.
As well.
Did you tell them what you were doing tonight? Were they all jealous that you were gonna geek out with two turds on the on your phone?
No, but I mean, honestly, band practice is kind of like this too. We talk about like what we like and dislike about songs and shit as well. But Ollie was definitely like, "Oh, is it a bunch of Britpop?" And I was like, "Surprisingly, no."
No, it would have been if it was '97. Yeah, I would have.
Yeah, he was disappointed. He was disappointed, man. He's a fucking huge Oasis fan. He drags me to all Oasis things. Yeah, well, no,
they didn't release an album that year.
No, I know somehow.
That's funny.
We have plenty of time to cover '97, Dave. Not today, but
yeah, exactly.
Well, do we want to get into one of these albums, and then maybe we could talk about if you owned the album, how you got it, and how you remember listening to it. We can put that stuff in with the why you chose it, if you so choose.
Sure.
So start us off, Dave. New Adventures in Hi-Fi, REM. What about it?
Yeah, so I'm trying to. I'm almost certain I would have gotten this at Phil's Records. Probably.
Nice.
Because I started going there in '95.
I think me too.
So
what's that?
We're talking Buttermilk.
Me too. I think I bought that there.
Yeah.
Buttermilk Pike location, yeah.
Yeah, that old, but I don't even know what's there now, but yeah. So I guess I'd been an REM fan for a few years. I got Monster when it came out, I think in '94, pretty close to it, which that was a kind of also a weird, very electric guitar-y album that I liked. And I'd gone back and listened to most of their older stuff, so I was going to get like the new REM album. And I don't know, it was a weird, probably confluence of where I was at in my life and that album. I don't know. For me, like that was probably the '96, so kind of the end of freshman year, beginning of sophomore year, was probably like the most uncomfortable period of my life, I would say. Like where I just, like that weird transition out of like being a kid or, whatever, you're at Agnes the whole time and here's your group of friends and like nothing changes. But then like in high school, you actually, I don't know, all that stuff sort of gets thrown up in the air and you don't necessarily hang out with the same people, and some people grow up more quickly than others. And I don't know, it just was a weird, awkward time for me. And then that album was just, it's strange. The songs are not really even REM like, but there's just something about like, even the cover of it is like black and white. And it just, I don't know, it feels very, some of the songs are amazingly beautiful, but a lot of it is just weird and strange. And I don't know, for some reason, it just like haunted me. And I think the thing that grabbed me first was Ebo the Letter, which Brennan talked about before, but that was the first single, which was a weird song to hear on the radio. But back then, like there were 2 or 3 stations that would play whatever single REM put out. So I remember hearing that song on the way to work, on the way to school. I remember Balskus used to play songs on the radio or on his stereo in his room.
Did he play that one?
I specifically remember one morning he was blaring that one, and it's one of those things, we already liked the song, but like when you hear it in a unique, different setting, it's just like you will never ever forget that. And it just sucked me in. I listened to the album all the time. I remember, it's so weird, but I remember like not going, I think it was like, because this album came out in September of '96, and I remember not going to the Halloween dance that year, which, so 6 weeks after it came out. And I specifically remember like sitting at my parents' house, like just listening to that album over and over, just like not depressed in any way, but just that weird, just like hormones raging. And no. That's why
Jason and I were drunk on vodka.
Yeah. So, but no, it's like it was a weird time. It was
6 o'clock talk.
No, you guys started like,
we were puking in Tyler Maggs' basement.
Yeah, you guys were like, let's just say like running with a little bit of a different crowd and doing things I wasn't doing. Which, hey, that's how it works. But I just felt like
the next night we got drunk on cheap beer together.
Yeah.
I'll assure you, like we were like, kind of doing the same thing. Just not that
for
night.
like not for like a year though. Honestly, it was for me like it was '96 and '97. I don't know. And we'll talk about it later with your albums, because I remember being in different places hearing that music. But I don't know. And again, I wasn't depressed or anything. It was just, I specifically remember this album playing these songs, just sort of like trying to figure out high school, like who am I really friends with? It was weird. I don't know. And it just stands out.
I feel like the title is so perfect for this album because, like you were saying, Monster is a departure from everything that most people had come to love about REM. You knew what to expect. Their albums, they weren't formulaic in any way. You were always getting something else, but the types of guitar, REM didn't use much distortion up until Monster.
Not at all.
You didn't hear,
no.
You knew you would get these sort of fast-paced, but always sort of even tempo. You didn't get mood changes in songs. You weren't getting the songs on Monster and then on New Adventures in Hi-Fi. They were that. They were new adventures. Like they were experimenting in places that they hadn't before. Sounds like Dave was going through new adventures in high school as well.
Yeah, there you go. Maybe I did not necessarily make that connection with the title, but no, you're right. And it was just sort of haunting songs. Even like the How the West Was Won, the first song, was just such a strange. I don't know.
I have no idea
piano and bass
songs are about.
No, exactly. I listened
to
zero
this album that, and I love this album. I loved it back then too. I have a lot of memories about it back then too, but I really don't know what their songs are about at all. Usually, they have a haunting. How the West Was Won sounds vaguely Western.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
But they're haunting and beautiful.
Yeah, and even like you mentioned Electrolyte before, like to this day, I mean, I play that song all the time. It is so good, and it's the 14th track on this album. Like, they put on this amazing song at the end. It is, and I will say, like, listening to it now, there's probably 3 or 4 songs that just aren't very good, and I don't really listen to. But man, 8 or 9 of the songs are just still, to me, like stand up. I mean, they're really good. But it takes me right back into that time period of just sort of confusion and growing up, and I don't know. It's kind of for me, that's a perfect album to represent 1996.
It's a good one. It's an awesome pick.
Fucking man.
They they still had some vintage REM feel on a couple, like I think Bittersweet Me. So it kind of has that older REM sound to it. But for the most part,
and there's still some catchy melodies on some of the songs like that. They're just like their instinct for writing catchy songs is still there. But yeah, some of the instrumentation, the weird guitar fuzz, and they still have some of the straight up just electric guitars that they had on Monster, and some other weird ethereal shit that wasn't the norm for them.
I also
I do like that fuzzed out guitar that you hear both on Monster and this one. That stuff I think is super cool, man. I like to push that in the music we try to make, but I don't know. It's tough. It's a great album. Great album.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I will add one little other tidbit when I was looking into this, partially because I've been listening to that the Scott and Scott show, Scott Aukerman and Adam Scott.
Oh,
and they're now talking about REM albums. It's a great podcast. Are you talking REM?
Oh, I don't listen to this.
Oh yeah, it's great. So they're
you got to do it.
They're on the second album right now, and they're on Murmur.
Scott?
Yeah, it's I can't remember what the name of the.
Well, what are we trying to do here? Talk about REM albums.
Yeah. We have no business.
Are you talking REM Re-Me?
Re-Me. Then I'll splice in their intro music here, and then we can say, are we doing an episode about? So no, they're good, Brennan. You should check it out. But anyway, they've only done the first 2 albums, so they're nowhere near this. What I was saying though is that they really dig in deep on a lot of stuff. And one of the things that they talked about was how, they didn't used to put which side of their album you were supposed to play first. It wasn't like side 1 or side 2, side A, side B. It would always, so on this one, it was high and fi.
Who didn't? REM?
REM,
yeah. Yeah, so I've got some of their early records, and I noticed that when I bought them, like, it does not tell you what side's first.
It'll be like flora and fauna, or like, you just
random words.
So anyway, on this one, it was 2, because it was so long. It was 2 albums or 2 records, and the first 6 songs, I definitely can, like, going through it. The first 6 definitely have a different feel than the next 8, and not to say that they're completely disjointed, but the first 6 have, I don't know. I think that more sparse feeling to them.
Yeah.
And then it starts to pick up the tempo on those last 8. Not to say that there isn't also like slower songs on the last 8, but I just thought it was interesting because I'd always consumed it as one 14-song CD, and not ever as as the vinyl, like this side then this side, this side then this side. It's like 4 sides. And then when the record changes altogether, the mood does a little bit too. So I thought it was cool to look at that, and then when I went back and listened to it, have that in mind. But it was a good listen back through.
Do you guys know where some of these songs were recorded?
I hope you say where the Raritans practice.
Denver? I don't know.
No. The REM songs that they were in the big arenas that they were playing in that night for the Monster tour.
Oh,
so they
really?
recorded most of these songs during sound checks. Yeah, I read a little bit about this.
Interesting.
So during the Monster tour, they wrote all these songs, and then they recorded them during sound checks. So it's the studio is like these big fucking arenas all over the country.
Weird.
The U.S. Bank and Oil and Gun Factory arena. And then they go the next night. They go to Cleveland. The Gun and Oil and
Quicken
Factory.
Loan.
Yeah, that's
great. That fucks you for life arena.
Doesn't Quicken Loans sound like the biggest fucking scam in the world?
Hey, spoiler alert.
Well, when I look for a loan, I want the quickeness.
Quicken, yeah. Not responsible.
The quickest loan is the fastest loan.
That's funny.
So anyway, but they did them in big ass arenas in Atlanta and Memphis and all over the Pyramid in Memphis. They recorded a couple of these songs. But they did it during sound checks and just put it straight through the board and pressed record.
So, I did not know that.
That would explain the like hollowness of the sound, like an empty arena, the sparseness to some of the bigger, the ones that aren't as mixed up with distorted guitars and stuff like that. So, well, that's cool, man. Good factoid. God damn, you guys are fucking smart. I'm glad I do this podcast with you all.
Can you edit out the parts where I forgot what I was talking about?
No, man. Fuck.
No, it's part of it.
No.
All right, fine. Keep moving.
All right, well, Brennan, then let's. You want to go next? Or you want me to go next?
No, man, I'll go next. Pinkerton, Weezer's Pinkerton. Man, here's an album, right? It clocks in at 34 minutes and change, and it uses every one of those minutes on some real deal, real feel, Rivers Como emotion. And it hit me right in the heart wiener. When I was 15 years old, and it was the absolute nexus of Weezerdom for me and any other rational, normal being. It really should have been. And it was fucking great, man. And Weezer was a great pop sensation, and then the first emo sensation with Pinkerton, and then they went the way of something after that. The Pinkerton, man.
The way of something.
Jason, you liked Pinkerton.
Oh, dude. We were all Monkey Box, and all of Monkey Box's groupies were all obsessed with Weezer and with Face to Face and with upbeat, nonsensical kind of stuff. This is the first time, I can't. Face to Face and most of those pop punk bands that we listened to were. A lot of them were teenage angsty stuff, but Weezer's first album was so. It was poppy. It was about high school problem shit, like I'm kind of a dork and I can't get girls and I'd rather be in my garage, or I'm going to try to go to this party, but I'm not very cool and I'm going to sit in the corner. But it was still upbeat enough that it drowned out all the sad shit and like the emotion in it, really. And then he just basically put his heart on the CD for us all to see and feel, and it was I don't know, it was awesome. But again, it's a weird juxtaposition because they're all upbeat songs. So like musically, and I don't know much about like keys in which things are written, but
neither do I. It hinders me as a songwriter too, which is shitty for my band mostly. But
the drums are always in the same key, aren't they?
yeah, well, I mean, not really even. And I certainly fuck up that key from time to time too. But yeah, you don't need to know what key exactly.
Right. So, well, I'll get back to it. Yeah, I was obsessed with it. When it came out, I was obsessed with it. And I was like Dave, like almost every song on this album spoke to me on a personal level. Like not the Japanese aspects of it so much. I
was tired of sex. The tired of sex thing. When I was 15, I was not tired of
like
sex.
done with it.
That's something I couldn't actually relate to on a personal level. It was track one.
Nor could any of us. Nor could any of us.
But I dreamt of a day I would be tired of sex. So.
I just more mean like the lovelorn loser who can't figure women out, has no idea when it comes to women whatsoever. Because that's basically the point of view he's writing from in every song on this album.
For sure, man. That is something that, the unrequited love, of course, as high school dudes, I feel like we all felt that. And it is a lot about not fitting in exactly, and that unrequited love, and just a lot of raw emotion, like you guys said. It did speak to me in a cool way back then when we were all 15 years old. I think it's regrettable that Weezer took a break after that and came back. It didn't seem like they had really grown up.
Yeah,
a whole lot. And we all did, and a lot of their other music didn't live up to the musical or emotional level that I think Pinkerton reached. It's a cool era in kind of real pop rock. 'Cause it's definitely pop, but it's definitely rock and a lot of other things too. So it was cool, but Weezer's a weird band, man. It's not like REM. REM continued to do good things, and I continued to respect them. But I honestly, unfortunately, I loved Weezer back then and couldn't continue to, I don't know, like their music a whole lot or respect them as, I guess, artists. They're good musicians. They can play their music, their instruments, but it was tough. 'Cause I really did love them, and a lot of their more recent music just hasn't lived up to it at all.
Oh, it blows.
Yeah, it's fucking blows.
Yeah, I mean it's shitty. I don't get it. I guess I don't know. I think you hit the nail on the head. Where'd you buy Pinkerton? Though? Do you remember?
I'm almost sure I got it at Phil's Records. I hadn't thought about it before you guys mentioned it a few minutes ago. I think I bought it at Phil's Records though.
I'm pretty sure I got mine at Media Play. Yeah, I think I got it at Media Play. I remember.
Media Play is a weird name for a store, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
It was.
I think it was weird then for some reason.
I was a latecomer. I was a latecomer to Best Buy. I have no idea why. Like my grandma.
I was Media Play all the way.
My grandma always got me Media Play gift cards or something. I don't know, but yeah, I definitely I remember going to Media Play and getting Pinkerton and being. It was probably around Halloween. I got it a little bit late. I had already heard it, but yeah, I think I got it there. Like 90,
do you guys
98%
want to hear
sure.
a confession I have? I
Yes.
told this to a whole lot of people. It involves Weezer.
Oh boy.
And it was at Bogart while Weezer was rocking their stuff. They played, I think it might have been the last song. I'm not exactly sure, but it was Butterfly, which is the last song on Pinkerton. And Pinkerton is a bit of an ode to Madame Butterfly, the opera.
Opera, yeah.
And so the entire album is incredibly transparent lyrically. And Butterfly is a song that tries to go a step further. And it tries to go into the realm of one paper thin layer of symbolism, I think. And this is the awesome height of Weezer. I'm serious on that part. And so they do, and it's a lovely tune.
You did something at Bogart's while Weezer was playing this song.
You just Bogart at that point.
Yes, I remember. Hold on. Fucking edit this out. If anybody's going to hear this. I have a confession to make. I'm back. When it says, I'm a dog and you're a bitch, I screamed bitch. And nobody else did. And everybody turned around and looked at me, and I was like,
Rivers got me.
No. I was just being a dumb 15-year-old. But yeah, he kind of got me, I guess.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, I guess
That's amazing.
I guess the whole album was supposed to be written from the point of view of the sailor and Madame Butterfly.
Madame Butterfly, yeah.
And so he's just like this. I don't know. I've never seen it or read it or heard it.
Well, they were going to do a concept album based on Madame Butterfly, and that kind of.
Did you read the same wiki encyclopedia that I read about this?
I might have read some Wikipedia.
But yeah, I found that interesting too. I was wondering where all the Japanese references came from. I just figured he hooked up with an Asian chick at Harvard and was like.
I think that's probably really what happened.
So.
But they were also big in Japan and Asia from the Blue album.
Yeah, I did know
as well, and so that was huge over there too. So that all came into it, and him going to depressed school at Harvard. I don't know. Somehow this all spoke to me.
Well, it was a pretty kick-ass album, man.
Yeah, no, I was not like a huge. I mean, I liked Weezer. The Blue album was I thought it was good, but I didn't listen to it on my own. But I was one of those annoying people. I think probably shortly after it came out, that was like, oh, I like this one better than the Blue album. And it absolutely reminds me of being in Joe Wendt's basement and band practice and blaring this album nonstop the whole time, between songs. When I hear the word Pinkerton, that's what I think of.
Joe Wendt's basement.
Yep, absolutely.
Now, man, that's fucking awesome, man. Because band practice. I was there, and that band, we would play a lot of times for our band practice. We would play the Blue album straight through.
Yeah.
That album actually meant a shitload to me in a lot of ways, even though it was even kind of dumber and kitschier. But we really would. We would play that album straight through for band practice and get up and go home.
That's funny.
There's worse albums to play, start to finish, for sure.
Yep.
I was always.
There might not be too many better ones. That was good times, man. I'm glad you think of those times for those times.
Oh yeah, and I remember you guys playing El Scorcho. It was such a weird song, but it always sounded pretty cool.
Yeah, that was a fun one.
I was always very jealous that I was not musically inclined whatsoever. My pick, I went hip-hop on you all.
Yeah.
I've always been a non-closeted hip-hop fan.
Ooh la la la.
Man, dude, I'm telling you right now, I was first, I can't remember which of the Columbia House or BMG had the better one of them had an awesome hip-hop selection, and I was like, I'm going to join this.
I bet it was Columbia House.
And I was like, I'm going to join this again just so I can buy 12 hip-hop records. And so I got I got some Tupac, and I got The Chronic, and I got Doggy Style, and I got
Good choices, all of them.
G-Funk era, and I got, I stocked up.
All Eyes on Me.
Illmatic. So I stocked up, and I got all that stuff. And I knew about the Fugees, but everybody was sort of acted like they were posers. They're like, they're a rap group, and they're like they're one girls, they're singers basically that are trying to rap, is the way that people sort of tried to sell them at first. And so I didn't know if I'd like it. And then when the score came out, it was amazing. So first off, Lauryn Hill's voice is unbelievable when she sings.
Yeah.
For me, her version of Killing Me Softly, even especially if you would take out Wyclef going one time, is
two times.
Two times.
It's really unfortunate because it would be
it is a really amazing version of that song. But she just belts it out. But she fucking raps like a maniac on there too. There's a song Zealots on there, and after she gets done dropping I don't know, a minute and a half of knowledge, she just goes, and I'll add a motherfucker in there so you ignorant hear me. And it's just like, damn, girl. She goes a minute and a half without cussing, and then she's like, and all of you that weren't paying attention, fuck you.
She was like giving us a hint of the trouble times to come right then and there.
Oh yeah. She's the whole group. I mean, they all lyrically, it's a really good album. There's hardly a track I would skip on there. Yeah, they cover some Bob Marley on there. They cover Killing Me Softly. But then the, Fuji La, Fu La La La. And then, like I said, Zealots is probably my favorite song on that album. Just Ready or Not, I mean, it's hit after hit. And I remember already having used my 12 selections and wanting that album. So I went out, and that was one of the first hip-hop albums that I bought at a store. First rap albums, hip-hop albums that I went out and bought at a store. Unless,
did it make you feel cool?
Unless Sir Mix-a-Lot counts. I'm not going to count.
It totally does. Why would that not count?
So yeah, it did. It made me feel cool only in the sense that I think I was the only person at Media Play looking for Fugees the Score in like I don't know, like late 1996. Even though it came out in February, I didn't get it till much later, like probably November or December around Christmas. But I do remember that Christmas break, listening to it in Rhett Framby's basement many times. So that was right after he moved to Villa Hills, I think. And yeah, I do remember.
What was he passed out and not listening to Joshua Tree era U2?
Oh, I don't know. He was trying.
point?
We probably had some girls there,
what
and
are
he
you
was
trying
trying to
to
make
say?
out with. I don't know. We had probably snuck some girls in those windows or something down in the back. Maybe I don't know. I don't want to name names. That would be rude. But,
yeah.
But yeah.
Like the innocent.
So, but no, that I don't know. It was just it was a cool album because like my mom's biggest thing with hip hop, she's like, "Oh, you can't even hear what they're saying, and they just cuss and this and that." And then I'm like, "Listen to this," and she would listen to Lauryn Hill, and she's like, "That woman's got a pretty big voice." And then she'd throw a motherfucker in there, and then my mom would be, "Turn this off."
No.
So.
God would not approve.
Yeah. Well.
Jesus.
So yeah, I don't know.
Oh man.
Beyond that, it was.
He didn't speak English, but he is a big stickler on it these days.
Well, I will say that it holds up too. Like I listened to all the ones that you all picked, as well as a couple that I was thinking about picking. And this was like the third one I listened to. My other hip hop choice that I was thinking about was Outkast. That one reminds me, Kohlhepp had like he had to take like a Sharpie, and there's like a naked woman on the CD, and like an alien woman getting abducted by aliens, and he had to draw like a bra and panties on her so his mom wouldn't freak out because it was like a woman in the buff, even though it was a cartoon getting sucked up by an alien or something. But yeah,
alien tits are offensive for religious people. It's weird. It's in the Bible. It's in
For
the
all
Bible
people.
somewhere. Thou shalt not
covet alien tits.
rest eyes upon and covet alien tits.
It couldn't be clearer.
So, what do you guys? The Fugees, the score. Were you into it then, later, at all?
It's funny when I saw your text that was the one you picked. I went and listened to it, and I remember it being incredibly popular. Like that, even the album cover. I remember seeing that everywhere, and certainly like I remember listening to it, but I don't really remember where. I remember hearing some of the songs on the radio, but I never felt like a strong connection with it, other than Killing Me Softly. It was amazing. That version to this day, I think, is incredible. And I loved Lauryn Hill's first solo album. Like I was obsessed with that.
Yeah.
The Miseducation.
3 years later, whenever that was, 2 or 3 years later.
Mm-hmm.
But for some reason, the Fugees, even listening to it, I liked it. I just I don't feel.
Sure.
I don't have any like strong memories for whatever reason. I don't know. And I think I was just like not. Probably in high school, I just wasn't as open to that kind of music, for whatever reason.
But
and I think it's perhaps for the same reason that I'm still not that into hip hop, and this is one of my absolute favorite hip hop albums, but for some reason, it still doesn't hit as hard as a lot of other genres for me. And so I'm with you, Dave. I don't. This doesn't bring back distinct memories for me, like a couple of the other ones do, and both REM and Weezer did. And even like you said, actually, Lauryn Hill, the Miseducation of Lauryn Hill does. This one didn't for me, but I listened to it again today, and it is really solid, man. This is the cool, kind of very jazzy, kind of self-aware hip-hop album for that time, and it's cool. And it hits on some political things and some lighthearted things, and does a lot of good stuff without being all bitches and money like a lot of hip-hop was then and now.
Well, and that's what I find myself more gravitating towards now is socially conscious hip hop, Black Thought from the Roots, or Mos Def and Talib Kweli. I could listen to This Is Black Star like 100 times back to back, and it's just really good, smart stuff. Poetry with a beat to it, but like socially conscious poetry. I think that the other thing that I'll say about this is that in terms of like being into hip hop in high school is that I got into it because it was different. It was raw. It was edgy. They were saying things that I knew that my parents wouldn't approve of, or that most decent human beings wouldn't approve of. And but I will say that as time went on, there's a time and a place for like fun. But it got to be a point where the saturation of just rapping about what you have, it just got so tiresome. Like, so I have zero tolerance for that type of stuff anymore. And almost everything that I listen to in terms of hip hop, it has to be good lyrically. And Dave and I have had this conversation about lyrics and music a million times about how I'm a lyric guy, and I wasn't.
I'm a music guy. I'm a music melody guy. Melody all the way.
And so for me that was the allure to this album too, is because I felt like it the three of them they all had something to say and something different to say, a different perspective to write from, but all really, really good stuff. I also tend. Oh, go ahead.
Go finish your thought.
I was gonna say I was glad that Brennan brought up the the backing tracks, and what. That's the other thing is that Tribe Called Quest, Diggable Planets, those types of jazzy infused rap were really what got me away from Biggie and Tupac, and that's like wanting to listen to that type of hip hop when I did all the time, like just knowing that something else was out there that sounded more like music that I wanted to listen to, but said also what I wanted to hear from, it wasn't saying the same thing as rock music, or it was saying it in a different way. And that's what drew me to it. And I think that this album does both those things. It's got something to say, and it's got a cool, the music that goes with it is awesome. So,
no, one thing. Go ahead, Brennan.
We're the worst at this. One thing that I thought that when I listened to all three of these albums today was that Weezer's is very literal, and I think that Fuji's is pretty literal, and then R.E.M. is like really abstract.
Yeah,
you don't know what the fuck that's about.
No,
really.
No.
It's so much more abstract, and I don't know what's better.
No.
It's one of like the central questions maybe is like abstract better. I've also listened to Odelay today. Jason, you mentioned you might want to.
I was really close, but
dude, that's an album I'm really familiar with too.
Yeah,
great.
My issue with that one is I was into it a lot more. I bought it in probably 97 or 98, and then I was really into it in college. So more so than I was at the time. So for me, with the exception of Where It's At, which I loved the video for, and I knew every word to that song, like I did for Loser, and I thought both those videos were really cool. And that was another thing I was going to bring up, but I'm going to let Dave. Dave, you had a point that you were going to make. Go
no,
ahead.
in fact, Brennan sort of brought it up, but it was I was thinking about why rap has never like totally drawn me in. And I think it's, I obviously love music and melody above all. So I think I've come to appreciate lyrics more in the last 5 years, but it's still to me like very secondary because what really moves me is the music and melody. But I think in some ways, the fact that like REM lyrics are inscrutable, or sometimes I don't really even hear what people are saying. That's what I want from music a lot of times is to like transport me or not make me think about like, here's this real issue that I'm rapping about or even singing about that will make you think about it rationally and deal with it or address it, which I completely understand the place for that. And it's a powerful thing. But that is almost never what I want out of music or art.
Yeah,
I want to like
you want something
go the other way,
a sonic or visual picture that,
and let my brain like do weird things.
It asks something of the viewer or the listener in order to interact with it.
I don't want them to tell me the answer or even like take me really far down a path that makes the answer obvious. Like just like set me off on something, and I'll, and I think that's probably why. That's probably why like it's pleasing to me to hear REM albums like New Adventures, where it's this weird, beautiful music I'm not distracted by the lyrics at all, which sounds weird, but I think that's what appeals to me,
I think I'm a very moody listener when it comes to that stuff. So like, I like Brennan was talking about earlier, I've got earbuds in anytime I walk my dog or, I know that's going to be 20, 25 minutes. So sometimes I'll have on hip hop, the more like if I'm fuming about some political shit, that's what I want to hear because I'm like, some people.
I've been going down those rabbit holes a lot lately.
That's when you can listen to some Rage Against the Machine or some politically based hip hop, and then you maybe feel better after 20 or 25 minutes and listening to that shit. But on the flip side, I also like to be I'm not always all lyrics, and one of my favorite bands of all time, Pavement. I mean, their lyrics are so bonkers sometimes that I'm just like, but they write awesome melodies, good stuff. I
was singing Malcolmus's "The Hook," the song about becoming a pirate.
Yeah.
I was singing that to Charlie last night because it like came on, like trying to know the words. He was wearing pirate pajamas, and he fucking loved it, man.
Nice. Dad of the year.
He got a bit. At age 19, I was kidnapped by Turkish pirates.
Yeah.
Mediterranean thugs. So I went on.
No. It's, and actually, Malcolm he's got some awesome
Bad rock.
His storytelling stuff, like Hopscotch Willie, that song. Like his storytelling songs are really good, but then there's songs like Carrot Rope that you're just like, what the fuck is going on here?
Carrot Rope's fucking awesome.
Yeah, Carrot Rope's a great song, but I have no idea what's going on in it. Like,
I love that song.
So, but Dave, back to the point. I was just, just like Brennan's talking about, like Charlie can't make out the words to that song, but he likes something about it. Maybe it's the faces that Brennan's make when he's doing it. Maybe it's the like rhythm of the song. Maybe it's the whatever. But the cool thing is that if the music I'm listening to definitely matches my mood, and I'm just as much in the ship where I want to, escape and sail off somewhere else as I am like I want this to make me think. And I feel like I'm sort of more 50-50 on that. Whereas you were like, I hardly ever want to be in that other place. I feel like I'm more 50-50 on that, and it really sort of matches my mood, whether I'm like escaping or getting into it.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. I mean, because I do, obviously, there's a part of me that wants that experience, but I think I seek it out more in like magazine articles or documentaries or
Sure.
some sort of nonfiction as opposed to music. And I don't know why that is, but just music to me is associated with something else.
Right on, man. Well, there's no right or wrong.
No, hey, absolutely not.
Well, I think I'm pretty much right, and you guys are wrong.
Well, what were some of your guys' seconds on this list? I just, or anything else that we talked a little about like songs or I can't help thinking of Dave Matthews Band was almost what I talked about just because I just remember it being all around.
It was a huge part of all of our lives.
Also Rage Against the Machine.
Yeah, for
man.
sure.
Evil Empire. Go ahead.
Rage for me, for sure. Rage for me. That album, I listened to a whole lot. That was great. I'll tell you, I listened to some Goldfinger in 1996.
Yeah.
Not a great band, not a proud moment, but totally rocked that.
Her eyes were hazel. Her name was Mabel.
Right.
Oh man, yeah. That Face to Face self-titled album I listened to again in its entirety today, and I was like, I might listen to this again next week. It's really not that bad. I really enjoyed the listen. Dave's like scratching his head. He's like, "You guys were so into that shit." I'll never forget. The other thing I wanted to bring up about this is that this is also the time when we started to go see shows at Bogart's, or Brennan alluded to seeing Weezer at Bogart's, but that was the other thing that the car enabled. Is we started to go to a lot more of those shows, and the first one I went to, we were still freshmen. But did either of you guys? I can't remember if either of you guys were there, but we went and saw Violent Femmes at Bogart's.
I did not.
Freshman
I did
year.
not go. No.
It's like
I was not part of that. I didn't like them, and I still really don't. But I didn't. But didn't Katie Haydorn make out with a bunch of people back then?
Yeah, why not? Yeah, Buzz maybe, Woods maybe.
Yeah, maybe. It wasn't. Yeah.
Woods probably made out with his girlfriend and then made out with Katie and then made out with his girlfriend again at the time. So yeah, that was
the story.
But yeah, we saw Face to Face open for Reverend Horton Heat that year. That was a fun ass show. That was really good. A lot of these, when I was going through this, there was a lot of memories tied to Bogart's. I remember them playing Sublime.
Bogart's is a cool place, man.
Yeah, it was. Smoke-filled, dirty, proper rock venue.
Yeah.
Almost every punk band we probably saw up there at least at one point during high school. Weezer for sure. Saw the Flaming Lips there in high school. Maybe none of these other ones, but. And MMMBop came out this year too. I know we didn't talk about that, but surely none of us can forget that earworm of a shit song. No. Okay, so last thing I wanted to do was
lovely album.
If you had to pick one off the list from today as your not for that time period, but just your favorite album that came out that year, I think you both know what mine would be. Wilco being there, but what would you all choose as the one? I know you probably don't have the list still up in front of you, but
I don't. I'm not prepared for this question.
Well, fuck you. Look it up, then.
Wow. Wilco, I definitely listened to them a lot more, and like you said, man, it was difficult to separate, for me anyway, what I was into then versus what I was into in the years later, which there were a lot of really good albums there.
Yeah, no doubt.
Yeah, for me, I think, REM's, that would be probably still the winner, but close. I think the other two for me would be No Code by Pearl Jam, which was, again, one of their, weird albums that I really, really like. And is actually stood up fairly well. And then I think actually both Bell and Sebastian albums, actually,
Yeah.
Tiger Milk and If You're Feeling Sinister, are both really, really good.
Yeah.
So I don't know. And Odelay too. I mean, that's maybe not as much recently, but that for like 10 years, like that album really stood up well. I listened to that a lot. So I don't know. Good question.
Kid Rock, early morning.
Yeah.
That was one that I was really into.
Damn, I thought you were going to go with Metallica Load.
There's one here called Anal Cunt. 40 More Reasons to Hate Us was their album, and I was really into that. I did find the fucking Wikipedia page you wanted me to look at. I wanted also to point you in the direction of Fastball. Make Your Mama Proud was one of their.
Hey, they had a hit. They had a hit on that, didn't they? Fastball. They had a. I think they totally.
The Way
had a top 40 hit.
That was Semisonic.
Oh.
I think Fastball was The Way.
Yeah.
Maybe so. I'm not sure. I'm going to name a couple other bad ones. Dave Matthews Band, you're in there. Nickelback is on here. Curb.
Did you guys notice that Prince released like 4 albums in 1996?
I did, and I actually went and I like looked at what was on there. I didn't know any of. I knew like one. I had heard of one song out of the 4 albums. I was like,
yeah, no, it's insane. Yeah. He was in that FU mode, like with the record company. He's like, well, I'm just going to release stuff like every couple of months. Fuck you.
But
there was a Blur album. Man, there were so many fucking albums on here.
But it was that was like a weird live album.
Yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right. It was. There's a Jimmy Buffett album. I'm sure some of our parents, no names mentioned, are really into that. It's called Banana World. So Banana Wind. Okay. Banana Wind. What the fuck does Banana Wind mean?
oh.
Turn off this filthy music. Put on the sexual, reference Jimmy
Brian Adams called 18 Till I Die. Brian Adams was
48 at that time.
Yeah, I was going to say, he was nowhere near 18.
18 times 2.5 at that time. 18 Till I Die. This year at Red Rocks, I just noticed that Brian Adams and Ryan Adams are playing at Red Rocks on the same week.
Oh, Jesus.
They're both headlining shows.
They should have put them on the same ticket as the Adams brothers.
I know. No.
The Adams family.
Oh, the Adams family, yeah.
Yeah.
Tiger Milk, there you go, Dave. I'm looking
for
some shit here. Yeah, I think we touched on that.
Yeah.
Well, I guess that about wraps it up then.
I'm a cultural infidel, painting in the dark. I'm a cultural infidel, singing in the park. Socrates, about the sea,